Hi YouTube, Big Apple here, talking to you about another self-defense topic that I've seen before. Should I use a rimfire for self-defense? So 22 long rifle is the main one that most people gravitate to because it's the most common, so understandable. Would you use 22 for concealed carry? If someone asked me this, no, here's why. I will say this applies to pretty much all rimfire rounds. That includes 17 HMR, 22 magnum, etc. And this is for self-defense. This doesn't apply to hunting because yeah, a 22 would be good for squirrels. A 17 HMR would be good for coyotes. Okay, they're effective for hunting, but we're mostly talking about practically speaking. When you have all these other options on the market, would you use a rimfire for concealed carry? No, I would not. Number one. Sorry for the ink mess up there. 22 doesn't hold much ammo. 22 long rifle is a rimmed cartridge, so cases cannot stack the same, especially in pistols. The magazines and the ammo is also unreliable at feeding compared to centerfire, and 22 long rifle ammo usually has a lack of case crimping. So for these three things, number one, 22 long rifle is a rimmed cartridge. What I mean by that is, you can see it has that big shelf on the outside. Regular rounds like this 45 ACP is called rimless because you see the rim of that case doesn't stick out any farther than the wall of this case does right here, so it's considered rimless. So when it sits in a magazine, those little rims don't have to worry about pushing on each other. They can still feed in and out just fine because, you know, there's no obstructing there. So it's just sliding on the case. But when you start stacking these up, if you get one that the rim sits behind the rim of another one, then that's going to have trouble feeding because it has to get over that. If it's sitting in front of it like this, well, you're going to need a magazine that either has a rotating follower, is banana shaped, or one that has low capacity. I also didn't put in here that 22 magazines are generally harder to load unless they have a little thumb assist, but compared to one of these that I could almost, load in my sleep now. I mean, they're a lot easier to load and to manipulate the magazines, mostly because of the fact that 22 is a rimmed cartridge. The magazine and ammo is unreliable at feeding because, like I said, it doesn't have case crimping. As you can see, you can actually spin this. You can spin this bullet here, and what I mean by case crimping is, you can see that this bullet sits inside here, and maybe you can see the bulge that's actually on the nickel-plated case right there. I don't know if I can actually get it to focus, but that bullet is putting the neck on this case is putting so much pressure on that bullet, like there's no way I can move it around. I can't spin it or anything. If you've held one of these rounds, you know that this is really solid, and this is really not. If you actually worked hard enough, you can pull this out of here because instead of the round being crimped, the bullet actually has a smaller diameter under the brass here. So it's sort of just sitting in there in like a little ring. That's why you can spin it. That's why it just feels so cheap. Yeah, there are companies that make some self-defense rounds and rimfire, but I don't really buy it that much. It's still just, compared to centerfire, which is easily available, it's just so much less effective. So there's that. 22 rifles and pistols are considerably less reliable than centerfire ones. If you've ever bought bulk 22, then you know this for a fact. If they do feed well, you're most likely using a heavy 22 pistol like a target pistol or a rifle. So yeah, there is the Ruger SR22 that's lighter, that does feed okay. But if you compare it to its counterpart, the Ruger SR9C or SR9 full-sized, if you did a reliability test between those two and shot hundreds of rounds between the two, thousands of rounds between the two, I bet you'll see a distinct difference in reliability. And if you need your gun to be reliable when you really need it, and you need that reliability and it doesn't work, well, then you're screwed. So why rely on a cartridge that's less capable of feeding reliably and just has a track record for not feeding reliably? And if you've ever shot some 22 rifles before and you get, a pack of 22, there's no telling if they're all going to feed. CCI makes some pretty good 22 rounds, but they're still just a lot less effective for personal defense and feeding when you compare it to its centerfire counterpart. But you can kill someone with a 22, some people will scream. Yeah, it's true, but a 22 is monumentally on the lower end of the power scale when you compare it to 9mm 40 and 45, which I consider standard, service calibers. Even 380 is a lot more powerful than 22. The muzzle velocity from the service calibers dwarfs a 22. A 22 is still lethal though. You should always take guns seriously no matter what, but don't play around with 22s. know that they can kill. They're just a lot less effective at stopping somebody. And that's mainly what you want to do if you've watched my old videos, is stop a threat. A 22 will stop a threat a lot less effectively than a regular centerfire cartridge will. But my wife or significant other hates recoil. Okay, that might be true. I say that a 9mm is still plenty tameable enough for her. And there are actually some full grip 380s on the market now. If you've seen the LC 380 or the newly introduced Glock 42 that people are bashing, and rightfully so, because they should have released the 9mm. But if you've seen those pistols, if a woman could get a full grip on it, or any new shooter can get a full grip on the gun, and it's smaller than a 9mm, but also weighs the same as said 9mm, like the LC 380 compared to the LC 9, it's going to recoil a lot less. So there are so many other options on the market. Why would you, handicap yourself like that to a 22? This person should practice with the round he or she carries. So if they carry 380 or 9mm, you should practice with it. And this actually brings up a good point that's happened recently. If you've noticed, since the buying panic of Sandy Hook from last December, over a year ago, 22 is still difficult to find. So it's one of the easiest rounds to hoard, and it's very hard to find in tough times like these. That's another thing I forgot to even put on here. A 22 is a good starting place for shooters, but it's an awful self-defense round. So that goes without saying. That's just backed up by everything I say in this video. But you can get a 5-shot derringer that fits in your pocket. I love when people advertise that they should carry that as a backup gun or a main concealed carry gun. This is what I have to say about those. They have 0 sights, they're too small to hold, they have no trigger guard, they require the cylinder to be removed to reload, and they're single action only. No thanks. They also only hold 4 or 5 rounds depending on which kind you buy. And they're just to me, insanely impractical. If you've ever tried to fire one of those, man, is it difficult. And that barrel is like a ½ inch long. Do you really think that bullet's going to pick up a lot of velocity? No freaking way, man. It may still be able to pierce the skin, but it's not going to do nearly enough damage. It's just, it's asinine. I mean, I think they're mostly for novelty. I see no practical purpose for a derringer. So, a 22 Magnum is as powerful as a 5.7 by 28. If you're familiar with the FN57, played Call of Duty, whatever, you've seen this before. Put simply, it's not. It's almost as loud as any other pistol. So if you're buying 22 Magnum because of the pressure or the concussion of a centerfire round, well, 22 Magnum has just as big, actually probably bigger of a fireball and the exact same concussion. Almost rifle-length barrels are needed to achieve the same velocities from 22 mag to 5.7 by 28. So if you're using an FN57 pistol and you're going to compare it to a 22 Magnum rifle, like a little, it's probably shorter than 16 inch, like 12 inch or something like that, you're going to get considerably different velocities. Of course, if you have a full-size 16 inch barreled 22 Magnum rifle, it'll probably shoot faster than a 5.7 by 28. But then it gets to the point of, why would you use that for self-defense? Because it's just ridiculous. I'm going to get to more of that later. So the 5.7 with 28 will feed better since it's a necked cartridge. It's shaped like a rifle cartridge. It's a little bit necked. I'll roll in a picture here real quick. You can see it's just necked like any other rifle case. It's just super duper short. And that's the appeal of it. It's supposed to shoot almost rifle velocities and be able to fit in a pistol caliber, although it was initially designed for the FNPS 90. Most important aspect, 22 is a rimfire cartridge. Rimfire is considerably less reliable in ignition than centerfire, and if you've ever bought a bulk pack of ammo, you know this to be a fact. You'll probably get maybe 80 to 90% success rate with them. Them actually igniting, most of them will be duds. Or not most of them, a select few of them will be duds, you'll see. Most of them will fire. But there will still be some that don't fire. And that to me just doesn't inspire confidence. And it also shows that centerfire, something with a primer in the middle, is more reliable. So anyway, rimfire firing pins are actually shaped differently than their centerfire counterparts. So if the firing pin is slightly chipped or something, this could be bad news for you. Since a centerfire round just takes a direct hit in the middle of the primer right there, that's how it differs. So it takes a direct hit right there, and it's very, very repeatable. This one can hit anywhere on the edge of this rim, so it has to be very consistent all the way around, and your firing pin has to be strong enough and sharp enough to to hit that. And that's why they suggest you don't dry fire or rimfire guns that much, is because of the way the firing pin's shaped. Rather than being like a little needle, it's like a small box. It's shaped like a rectangle or like a square. So centerfire rounds are just plain better, and simply put, a rimfire is just not as effective for personal defense as centerfire. If you use a .22 carbine for home defense, it might be more effective than a pistol, but the same attributes apply to a .223 carbine. So if you have a Ruger 1022 as your self-defense carbine at home, you'll get so much better performance and so many better options using like an AR carbine, or like a what you call it, a Ruger Mini 14. Any other .223 carbine will have much greater attributes. The only real difference that you're going to see in how they handle is that 22 is quieter. That's about it. The recoil impulse is going to be, you know, just as soft, maybe a little bit stronger. But I mean, come on, if you can't shoot a .223, give me a break. But it's just as easy to shoot. It's easier to point. It's just there's so many better things. If you're trying to do that, you might as well get a .223. I recommend a 380 minimum. But I say 9mm is ideal because it's readily available, it's effective, you get more capacity, and you can still get a pretty compact gun in 9mm. So I'll take my 7+1 Car CM9, that's what the extended mag, my 7+1 Car CM9 every day of the week over something in .22 that holds 10-ish rounds, because that's usually about how much you get in a pistol of the same size anyway. So a pistol, a full-size pistol chambered in 9mm can fit 17 rounds in here. But if you had a full-size pistol in .22, you'll notice it's usually single stack because it's a rimmed cartridge and you can fit a lot less. So hopefully I've outlined here why rimfire just isn't good for self-defense. I never recommend it. I think 9mm is your best bet, and 380 is good if you are limited in whatever way. So this is Big Apple signing out.